Good evening, everybody. And if you're just tuning in, you are listening to the Angel Rock Live. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. If you are listening and you'd like to watch the show, please come on over to the UFO Paranormal Radio YouTube channel. You can watch the show. We are streaming on other venues, same name. We're on Facebook. We're on my profile platform on Facebook under Lorilei Potvin. Also on my YouTube channel. But any of those places. Now, if you are on Facebook, those of you that normally join us know I cannot always see your comments. And some of you add some pretty great comments to the conversation. I know you may not like YouTube, but we'd love to hear what you have to say. And a little bit about my show. I say cover all aspects of the supernatural, whether it's UFOs, aliens, the paranormal, cryptids. I also do truth seeking and activism. And I also, one of my main things is I promote the power of the mind, power of positivity, as well as how to access your own intuitive gifts that we've all been blessed with. I'm a Canadian psychic medium. I am from Thunder Bay, Ontario. I'm a crystal Reiki, my mouth's not working tonight, crystal Reiki energy healer. I'm a psychic medium, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor, and I'm also a registered nurse. Now, tonight, I'm going to give a shout out to my girl, Karen Holton. She's been on here before. She will be on next week, actually, as well. She introduced me to this lovely lady that we're having as a guest this evening. Let me read a little bit of her bio. Her name is April Michalski. She's from Colorado, and from a very young age, she knew she was unique. She could sense the presence of beings and possessed the ability to read people from the time she was about 4 years old. She credits her knowing to surviving a harsh childhood. She has served in the USAF and US Army. She's also started a nonprofit to help veterans and others who struggle with suicide ideations. She is graduating this spring with a BA in American History and will be pursuing her master's in paranormal studies. I can't wait to hear more about that. April will be launching. Now, this is really cool, guys. I want you to really listen to this because I have never heard of a podcast like this that we're going to talk about. Mm-hmm. She will be launching a podcast, The Ancient Gift, debuting in February. She's also authored a book. This keeps closing on me. Sorry, guys. Going right back there. I'm so sorry. My stupid, I give up. You're going to have to give them the title. Welcome, April. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine. I kept trying to get it to go to Facebook. I'm just going to tell people, Dave Petrella's already here. Hey, Dave, how's it going? Dave's an astrologist. He's been on here before. Things happen when you're live, right? And I've got my second device, and I thought, oh, great, I can read from there because it wouldn't open your bio on my older page. So anyways, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell people the name of your book? I kind of left it hanging.
It's called Kindreds, Realizations, Revelations, and the Revolution. And it's basically, it's kind of like, it's funny because I started writing this a long time ago when I went to Greece. It was like my last few days, and I was outside of Athens in this little village, and I was in this like little restaurant. It's kind of half in the water, half off on a dock. And as the only single person in Greece, I was convinced because everybody was coupled off. So I'm sitting there with my little steno pad and, old school before social media and, cell phones were there, but it just wasn't, as, I don't know, prevalent as it is now. But I just started writing, and I just had a voice said, you need to write me. And I kind of looked around and was trying to see who was talking to me because I thought I was losing my mind. And she's like, no, you got to write me. And I realized it was talking to me, in my, I could hear her plain as day. Mm-hmm. So I started to write it. I don't subscribe to that I'm an automatic writer, but whatever message came out, I just started writing, and the concept of the book was born. And the main character, Afeda, she is the giver of life. That's what her whole presence embodies, and she is the first human being in thousands of years to connect with her soul, and in doing that she ends up saving humanity from themselves, basically.
Oh, I love it.
So it is kind of the thing that's really amazing about the book is that when I started writing it was really before social media was prevalent. It was 2008. We had technology obviously, right. But it seems to me like the times that we're in now, everything that's happening, it's like I just watched a special on Skinwalker Ranch. You've heard of that in
Well, I sent
Utah?
you my background in the paranormal. Like we have
Okay.
so many similarities. I've watched you. We're going to mention Chris's podcast for sure. Chris Matthew. We'll make sure to bring that up by the end. But I watched you on his show, so I was like, oh, I got to talk to that lady. And it was Karen Holton who connected us. That's why I gave it a shout
Awesome.
out.
Hey, our backgrounds match. You have a red checkered blanket, and I have a red checkered.
Yeah. There's been a few things you have said to me. Like when you were talking about your book, I'm going, holy crap, that sounds like now. And I have to, there's a question I'm going to ask you about that inner voice, but I was just going to mention, I don't watch a lot of TV, but we've been watching The Witcher.
I love that show.
Oh my God, it's addicting.
I mean, Henry Cavill, come on. But I mean, seriously, the show is amazing. Yes, I love it. So
hot. Well, the other thing I've been saying to a few people today is my partner Del has the show on the network. I give him a plug every now and then. So Delicious Recipe Thursday nights, and he does truth seeking. I hate the word conspiracy theory. And
I say the same thing. I say truth speaker. That's so funny. I heard you say that the other day, and I was like, oh my God, that's what I say. We're not conspiracy theorists. We're truth seekers. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wearing my truth seeker shirt.
I see that. I want one. I do. I want one.
Do you? Well, I have a Cricut, so I designed all this, cut it out. I'm launching a second business. I've got a few pieces here I'm going to bring up at the end of the show to show people. I'm actually going to get the damn store open. But where was I going with? Oh, my partner has, since I've met him, I've been with him for 13 years, and he's gone on and on and on and on about this book series, The Wheel of Time. Well, The Wheel of Time is now a series too.
I saw that. I haven't read the book though.
Okay, well, they are both in the future. Okay. They both talk about the white light or being on the side of the light or the light. The similarities are not even the same stories, but there's so many similarities. But getting back to The Witcher, because like I said, I talk about, the power of positivity, the power of your mind, without giving anything away. The last episode in season 2, the Witcher was battling with his fellow Witchers, a very, very powerful demon. And it hit him. And this is part of my message I teach to people too, is there was so much hate and anger, just venom they were pouring into this entity because it had killed some of their friends, right?
Right. And it was feeding it.
He got right away, all of a sudden he got from a crystal somebody had thrown to him. You have to watch the series. I don't want to give too much away. But the whole point was he realized we need to send it love. We need to send it high vibrational energy because that's so aversive to it. Its food is the negative energy. And that's kind of the... Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think there's just a slight delay. So if I interrupt you, that's why, and I apologize. Also, I'm extraordinarily ADD and high energy. So sometimes I lose track of my mind. So Chris calls me Squirrel Girl because I'm like, squirrel.
I was just gonna say that. I'm like that. I'll be talking because my mind, I don't know if it's ADD for me, but my mind's going a mile a minute. And all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, look at that. And so I always joke and say, oops,
shiny
squirrel.
Yeah. So at any rate, in my book, so this now, think back to 2008. Everything's we're in the matrix, right? Everybody's plugging along. I'm in my late 30s. I have 5 children. One's gone off to college. I have 4 daughters left, and I'm working. I'm doing my thing, and I end up starting writing this new age book. Now, I had been gifted my whole life, but I had never really, I don't want to say embraced it because I was taught like, that's bad. Like you can't know these things. You shouldn't know these things. There's no way you talk to dead people. Even though my grandmother was Native American, half Irish from the reservation. It was like beaten out of her. Basically, she was Cherokee Choctaw. So she was not allowed to, any of their fundamental Native beliefs, indigenous beliefs.
Del's grandma, she was Cree.
5
languages. And same thing sent to the Native schools here for Native children, beaten out of them, their culture, the whole bit.
Yep. So at any rate, when I started writing the book, I made up like mythical characters and in my book, there's realms. So there's the human realm, the kindred realm, and I don't want to give too much away. And then there's a shadow divide. Now the shadow divide is, I guess if you would go to my Christian upbringing, you would say, oh, that's heaven and hell and earth, right? Because you would have the three realms, and then you would have the up, the down, and then the middle, right?
Right.
But it's more than
More than that.
it's way more than that, because the shadow divide consists of all of men's evil they have ever done, felt, and said, that has coagulated into this being that now is being fed off of fear and anger and hate and war and all these negative emotions. So he's gotten stronger. So he's trying to break through the kindred realm and the human realm, because he wants to control all realms. And so he sends shivers, which I call an earthquake a shiver in my book. So all these earthquakes and natural disasters start happening on the earth, and the kindreds are feeling it. And, they're part of us, but they veiled themselves when we became evil and started like slaughtering all the mythicals. And so, but we each have, let's say, a doppelganger, or our kindred spirit, or our soul, our essence is in another place, but it tracks us, but we're not able to see it. Now, this is my book, and understand that I knew nothing about, like, let's say, I've always been fascinated with history, but like I knew nothing about Samaria. I knew nothing about, honestly, anything. I was too busy raising kids. I loved it, but I watched documentaries, but I wasn't like researching it. So I started making up all these like mythical characters, like half lion, half man, and neon warriors, and crow women, shape-shifting, flying, really cool creatures. And I'm naming them all. Like Eurydice is one of them I named. I made this word up. I just started playing with letters and, making names up. So this is how this happened. So COVID hits, and I pretty much, for that year or whatever, I wrote and I finished off the book. And I'm driving to California to go see my sister, because, we didn't know what was going to happen 2 years ago when COVID hit. So I'm coming back, and have you ever heard of Matthew LaCroix? He wrote Stage of Time. Great book, by the way. Good plug for Matthew.
I don't think so, no.
He is a brilliant, self-taught historian, I would call him, and also truth seeker. I don't want to say where he works, but he works for pretty prominent TV station. I'll just say that in Boulder, Colorado, so you can figure that out. And he's amazing. I mean, his research he's done, and his ability to self-teach, and in his he's a great book, Stage of Time. Can't say enough about it. Well, they were talking about the Anunnaki. And I had never heard of the Anunnaki at that point. So I'm driving, I get to Mexico, and it's actually Chris Matthew and him are talking about the Anunnaki. And I almost drove off the side of the road, because in my book, one of the kindred, the sages in the book, the wise people, what do you want to call them? They're called the Ijiji. Now, I thought I made that name up, but turns out the Ijiji were scientists for the Anunnaki. Yeah. So I literally was like off the side of the road, like went to Las Cruces, went to a hotel, I'm like, this guy's going to think I'm absolutely bonkers, but I am going to email him or message him. And I found him on Facebook, and I messaged him. I'm like, he's never going to call me back. He's too famous. He's never going to even like recognize that he answered me like within minutes. It was incredible. We had this great conversation, and he's like, I wonder if you're being downloaded to, or if you're like reliving a past life. And I had to really think about that. Because when I went to Greece, I felt like I was home. Like it was not foreign to me at all. And I didn't do your typical like Santorini and then all the islands. I backpacked the mountains of Greece for about almost 2 weeks. I don't even know how many miles I did. And I saw like the oldest church in existence, just incredible. So Leonidas defended off the Turks, the famous 300, just incredible sights. So of course, the Parthenon and all that stuff. But so we got to talking and stuff, and we kept in touch. He was very sweet. And then a few months later, I got the nerve up to message Chris Matthews, who is Forbidden Knowledge news host. Yeah. And we started talking, and then he had me on his show, like, I think almost like a year later. But the point being is that the book is, the more I learn about, now they're saying cryptids are on Skinwalker Ranch, and there's a portal, and they're coming in and out. And I'm wondering, like, maybe they're veiled because we'll kill them. Maybe we're not, we are definitely not ready as a species to say, hey, Bigfoot, or, hey,
I think that there are multidimensional. I
Right,
do.
right. So I'm thinking like every time I hear something else in this like realm that we exist in, the one that's not
Hmm.
participating in the, craziness in this world right now,
Hmm.
I think it's another link to the download. It's another verification or validation that I'm on the right track and I'm getting something right, because I don't think I became a history major by accident
No, no, no.
at all. And I was going to pursue my master's in world history. And then I was like, what they're teaching us is, I'm not going to, the college I go to is amazing and stuff, but the history, I already know for a fact, a lot of it is BS,
Wrong,
right? So,
wrong.
and so when I say paranormal studies, I don't know about parapsychology so much, but there's a couple other fields and things I'm looking into doing my master's, but I'm definitely not doing the traditional, American master's degree and whatever, because this is a part of myself that's opened up, and now that it's opened up, I can't stop it.
You
So
can't close the door. But let's back up for people, because you've had these experiences just as when things opened up for me. Looking back, I've had them back as I'm 56, and I've had them, God, I think since the age of 4, probably before. I'm
mhm.
positive I had a near death experience at the age of about 2.5, 3 years old. But so you, part of your bio, so you remember back as the age of 4, like, is there a familial history? Was this welcome in your family, or?
So I had a very difficult childhood. Very a lot of abuse and neglect.
Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, I'm only speaking of it now because I think it's important to kind of frame this when you ask me the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
My mother was an alcoholic, and my
Mm-hmm.
father worked overseas most of my life. So I think collectively, if I were to add all the time from the time I was 0 to 18 that I lived with my dad, maybe was 3 years out of 18.
Mm-hmm.
If you added all the months in together. Um, and my mom used to say, I'm seeing demons are demons. Now, she was an alcoholic. And now that I'm older, I kind of came to realize I think she probably popped a little like Valium, things like that. But I think because we lived in a very rural part of California, and there was an Air Force base not too far away.
Mm-hmm.
And we had like these huge fields with like aqueducts and stuff that fed like all the agriculture and everything. This is I'm 54, by the way. So you and I are
Are
close in
you?
age.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
even know we were close in age.
Yeah. So this is back in like the late 60s, early
Mm-hmm.
70s, right? And
Yeah.
so we had all kinds of phenomena like bright lights in the sky.
Wow.
And, and I really think my mom, I mean, she could have been, she was abusing substances. So it could
It
be
could have opened her
hallucination.
up to it, though, too, right? Because we know that those kind of things can lower your, whether you want to call it your auric field, your energetic field. It can make you open to stuff like that.
I think she was seeing extraterrestrials.
Oh,
I think that in her mind, she couldn't wrap her mind around
yeah,
that. So she called them a demon.
yeah,
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Paul?
yes.
It kind of, what's her name? Kristen Wiig, I love. She's
Mm-hmm.
hilarious, but she's
Yeah,
like, demon,
yeah.
demon, so I think that's what my mom saw. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what was coming to her.
Mm-hmm.
So, but and so when I tell you about my childhood, most of it's blocked, but I do remember the ability to discern. So when I would be around somebody that I wasn't quite sure of, because I'm outgoing extroverted now, but back then I was like really, really shy
That's
when I
how
was
I
younger.
was. People, I bet you people tell you they don't believe it, right? Like, I used to hide when people came over. I
Mhm.
never even started to speak. Like, no, you can't shut me up. But probably since I was about 16. But I was exactly what you're describing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. So I've always but see my grandmother being the Native American, and the Southern Baptist, that was like I would get slapped. I mean, that was physical, like you do not see this, you do not know this, and you will not speak of this. That was just not allowed, right? Now my other grandmother, which was my Polish Irish grandmother, was an astrologist and a
Ah,
seer. So when I moved to Florida when I was 10, I
okay.
spent a lot of time with her, and she would nurture the gift. She would encourage me.
Oh,
She would be open to listening to me. And still, wasn't something prevalent that we would talked about. But I remember she had this 1970s, and she had this like little thing looked like a Simon Says kind of like apparatus. We had like a little tape that fed into it. And I remember, she used to like put like dates in it and stuff, and it would spit out like, a little piece of paper that would read like,
Okay.
your little horoscope for the day or
Mhm.
month or year or whatever. It was cute, I mean,
Mhm.
now it's whimsical now, but she was actually very talented. And she was, my sister just told me a story that when we were little, we were visiting, and she had this, I guess, an angry phone call from this husband. And my grandpa answered the phone. My grandpa was this cantankerous, tall, like Polish, regal, like retired engineer guy,
Yeah.
totally scientific. I was his favorite grandchild. I hate to say that, but
Aw.
loved him. But he was kind of a jerk to everybody, but he was really cute, sweet with me.
Yeah.
But he gets on the phone. He goes, okay, I'll tell her. So he gets on the phone, and I just, Marie, because my grandmother goes, you got to quit doing this stuff. I guess she told this woman that her husband was cheating on her, and she was right. And the woman started spying on her husband and caught him.
Mhm.
And then she admitted that Marie did. So it was this huge thing. So yeah. So
Yeah, because she found out the truth.
yeah, I know. It's her fault for speaking the truth, not because the guy was cheating on his wife.
Always
Yeah.
kill the messenger, right? It's always
Yeah.
that way. Kill the messenger. Don't look at where it came from, just the fact that you found out the truth. And so we'll take it out on the person that told me rather than stepping back and thinking, okay, they told me. Now I need to deal with where the lie started.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, so, and I have had this, and it's gotten me out of a lot of stuff. And as a teenager, I probably shouldn't be alive with some of the things I did. I was pretty wild, rebellious, like, and it was so weird. It was like, well, that's not going to happen to me. Like, I'm not going to die if I do that. Like, I just knew, or like, I'm not getting into that car with that person because no way. And then they'd get in a bad car accident, so I just kind of had this knowing,
Mhm.
and then like I get in the military, and it was all business, right? It was all I was one of the first women in the Presidential Honor Guard. It was a 21 gun salute at Arlington National Cemetery. It was at the time, very prestigious. And women were not welcomed. Trust me. I think the Air Force was the second branch to let women in. The Navy, I believe, was the first. And I got hazed pretty bad. And so it was all business, It was all like, and then I got married really young and had a baby, and it was just about survival, right? At that point, there's no thriving. It was surviving. So when I went to Greece, it was the first rule, I think, big thing I've ever done for myself, and I could. And when I came back, it kind of started this awakening for me. And then COVID, and then I kind of went dormant, kind of like did business things here and there. And I just it's like I wasn't finding my place in life. Like I had a few partners, and I just nothing felt right. Just nothing was authentic. Everything was like, I'm doing this so I look good on paper, or I'm doing this so people respect me, but I'm not doing this because this makes me happy, or this is what I feel I should do. I'm doing this because I have mouths to feed, or, so it was kind of that societal like pressure. And then I don't know, like, I would say I started listening to podcasting on that trip out to California, and I didn't climb down the rabbit hole. I like dove head first without even checking how deep it was.
I've been down the rabbit hole because I have a son with severe autism that's 23, 24. So I dove down that rabbit hole very long time ago. But when you go and it's new, how vast and how wide it is, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I can still say I barely scratched the surface doing this for 20 years.
I mean, I listen to
25.
stuff every day. It's like I didn't know that, or I didn't know that, and then some things I take kind of with a grain of salt. Like, well, you can.
That's my
Like,
proverbial back shelf, I call it. I put stuff up there if I'm not too sure, like you just said, well, it's kind of out there, not too sure. I stick it up there because I truly believe, it's not failed me yet, but the truth always comes to the surface. If it's the truth, it will come to the surface.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I believe you. I agree with you and believe you. I don't know. So it's been kind of like a journey, and here I am in Colorado, and it's just incredible. So I have absolutely no regrets. I'm hoping the book gets published this year.
Good.
I'm
I
ready.
hope so.
I'm ready for it to be shared. I really wasn't ready for the world to read it because I was too scared to be,
I
kind of
can't
like,
wait to read it. That's right up my alley. Well, look what the shows I talked, and I don't watch a lot of TV. My only show I used to watch was Supernatural. And it got to the point, my theory is with the paranormal, and I always knew the paranormal never went looking for it, it found us. But my theory is, and that made me look into the, especially the monsters and stuff that they talked about in that show, realizing it's based on a lot of legend and lore and truth. There was a lot of research that went into these shows with the monsters. But to me, the monsters we all know, the vampires, the werewolves, and so on and so forth, they have to have some kind of truth to it for it to be existing through centuries of time and people telling you about it. What, like, because I remember you from Chris's podcast saying like you've lived practically every house you've lived in has had paranormal activity, right?
Oh, the house we live in now is loaded. But I wanted to touch what you just said. I truly, and maybe this is like, sometimes you'll read about an actor who gets so into character that they stay in that character. They eat, sleep, drink. They don't, like, if they have the co-star that's their nemesis, they won't even look at them. My book is kind of taken on that kind of a life of its own for me. And I honestly believe that, I call them realms. Scientists call them dimensions. We know that there are multiple dimensions, right?
Right.
I really believe that these species of beings were like chose to leave our reality because we were so violent. And we haven't gotten any better. We've just gotten better weapons. But we haven't gotten any better about treating each other with respect, kindness, and love, which is central to every Abrahamic religion, yet more people die in the name of those religions than any other reason on earth. So it's kind of like, and that's the other thing, I was brought up a very strict evangelical Christian, Southern Baptist. And it's not that I reject the belief system. I just don't subscribe to a God that would create a species of, of souls and condemn them to hell.
I agree.
It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And so I believe in a loving creator, and whatever, I don't know that it has a gender, but whatever it is, and it knows, and it's doing its thing, and it's given us divinity within ourselves. And we've been dormant, and we've been sleeping because we've been controlled by war and money and religion. It's been weaponized. So, and that's that part of my brain, right, is the historical part of the brain, which has been studying history now. I've been immersed in it for 5 years. And even if 50% of the things I have read and studied in world history and American history is true, let's just say, take a grain of salt, you have creative license here. Let's say 50% of it true. Can I swear on this? Am I allowed to swear on this? No?
Okay. Not the F word.
Okay. I was going to say the F word, so I'm glad you told me that.
No, because we're on FM radio down in the South, so
sorry, Southern people.
That's
I don't want,
okay.
and I don't want anybody think I'm dismissing anybody's belief system either, by the way, because I'm not. I respect all belief systems. I've studied, obviously, Christianity. I've studied Judaism. I've studied Islam. I've studied Hinduism. I've studied, a bunch of religious belief systems, and I have respect for all of them. But the thing that kind of gets me on all of those, and I'm just going to say this one thing and get off that soapbox because I don't want it to be that kind of a show, is that they all have the same tenet running through each belief system, which is do as to others as you want them to do unto you, the golden rule, like love and you'll be loved. Like that's the whole purpose we were created. And it's the one thing as humanity we're screwing up. So that's where the kindreds come in. And I think this disconnection that we have with ourselves, with our essence, with our soul, it's preventing us from connecting to source and to each other on a much bigger picture. And because of that, we're lost. And that's why we're fighting, because typically if somebody gets lost in a forest, they get scared because they hear noises and trees breaking, and it gets cold and all these things. And we're just like these lost souls running around trying to figure out our purpose and why we're here and why we were created. Every single one of us, it doesn't really matter who you are. Everybody has a moment like that. So I think until we find that, we're going to continue to do this where we're fighting and we're, against.
Yeah, but how many people, and I don't knock religion either. I was raised Roman Catholic. I was sent to Roman Catholic school. I was had made to go to church all the time, and I always my it's very similar to what you just shared. That to me, and I'm just going to say this. I always say it's not my job to judge, but every time I was forced to go to church, everybody had their seats. You might have to turn that down a little bit. We got a little bit of feedback there.
There's no sound. Oh, on
No, I
the
can hear
microphone?
you. You can just, yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. It can still hear it, but it's not too bad. Just so people can hear us. But what it was I was going to say, people with all the money sat up front, and then they judged everybody as the basket went by, and they were holier than thou. They were all in their most fancy clothing. And then the minute they walked out, just treated people like garbage. And to me, I say God, if God is your father and God is everywhere, I don't need to go to a special building to have a conversation if I want. No, other people, if you need that, hey, I'm the same as you. I've studied many different religions. I respect everybody, and you have your right. But for me, I'm okay with what I'm at, because I shared our episode from Paranormal Survivor and got so many comments about, you need to get right with Jesus. You need to be getting to church. You're not married in the church. That's why this all happened to you. So there's still a lot of judgment, is what I'm saying. Instead of, like you said, treating one another with kindness, treating like you would want to be treated, learning that, yes, we need to take care of ourselves so we have enough to keep giving to others, because I believe it's all about service to others rather than service to self. But most people think they're here for no reason. It's an accident. That's why they're here. Have you found that too?
Yeah. Yes. I think most people, well, I can't say most people. I have met a good deal of people. This is a touchy tinderbox subject.
We can get off of it.
That subscribe to a certain belief system. And so everything just shuts down, and it's like blinders, and they don't want to see anything else or know anything else or hear anything else, because they have their house, their picket fence, their 2 cars, their 2.5 kids, their dog, their collie, their vacation 2-3 weeks a year, their pension. And as long as they stay in this comfortable little box, all those things kind of line up and stay. But are they really happy? Because meanwhile, mama's probably sleeping with the mailman, and daddy is sleeping with a secretary, and the kids are miserable and they're rebelling in school. And like I said, my younger years, I wanted everything to look right from the outside looking in. Like, I was a good mom, single mom, I was good to my kids and everything, and I was, but I wasn't loving myself. I wasn't taking care of myself. I got very big. I was very depressed, and I was depressed for years. And a lot of that was childhood trauma brought forward. And I went through years of cognitive therapy. I've attempted suicide twice. So I have no shame in, so my whole foundation is directed at this cause. So I have no shame in telling that. But even to tell you that, a year ago, I would have been like, it's up in my throat, and I have to say this because people need to know, but I'm going to be judged. So I don't want to say this because then they're going to think I'm crazy, because I try to take my own life. But if you're ever in that space, and if anybody's listening to me and you are depressed, and or you are having suicide ideations, or even thinking about, like, I just don't want to wake up tomorrow, because I used to pray, like, God, if you're really there, I really don't want to kill myself because I don't want to hurt my children. Right. But if I don't wake up tomorrow, that's okay too. Like you get into this, like, and what I can say to you is like this. If you're under a house and you have wood floorboards above you, and you're in this you're on the dirt, right? Kind of dank, dark space. And you're just crippled with, like, I don't even know the word to describe, abyss, it's like a void. And all you have to do, you hear people come home, you hear people walking above you, clanking around, making noise. You see light filtering through the floorboards, okay? All you have to do is reach up and knock on those floorboards, and they'll say, hey, so-and-so's downstairs. We got to go get them out of there, help them out. You're so paralyzed with fear and depression and sadness and loneliness. Even if you're in a relationship, it doesn't matter. Even if you have 5 kids, it doesn't matter. You're just so in your own space that you don't even have the wherewithal or the strength to reach your hand out and knock on the floorboard to get help. That place I call the vacuum abyss. And I was there for many, many years. And the fact that I survived out of that is a miracle unto itself. And once April 1st of 2015 was my last suicide attempt. And then I lost my brother to suicide March 5th of 2018. So once he passed away, that was it for me. I was like, okay, I know what I need to do, because it's not just me, you know? And I knew from the suicide note he left, that referenced me specifically, and he has several sisters and brothers and kids and everything. And I was like, okay, I get it. I have to do something about this, because I'm not alone. There are other people that feel this way, and they're too ashamed because they've been conditioned and programmed by our society that you're weak or bad if you're having these feelings, and you're not. You're normal. You're normal, especially now with all this stuff going on in the world. It's just, that's insane. That's insanity what's out there. Not what's in your head or your heart because you're sad. It's insanity what's out there. So it took me a while, a couple years of cognitive therapy, a lot of spiritual. I did spiritual therapy and cognitive therapy in parallel for 2 years, and really grew my gifts and everything. And then once my brother died, that it was like something switched on. His death actually not just saved my life, but gave me a purpose. And I know that sounds kind of odd, but it put a fire in me to go do everything I want to do, what's left of my life that I've been too afraid to.
You know what though, April, I say this often, and I know one person was in a difficult space that heard this and took it the wrong way. But I said, as human beings, when we learn and when we grow and when we do what you did, when we're in a dark space, it's usually when something dark happens, something awful happens, something so painful, because when things are status quo and they're amazing and life seems like it's perfect, or like you're newly in love, whatever it may be, there is no impetus for change. So then a human being is faced with choice. What do I do once I start to heal? Say we've lost somebody we love, like your brother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you took that, like you said, and made it part of your purpose. Now, you could have had the choice to sink deeper and deeper and deeper with what you were going through, but instead you turned that pain into helping others. That's what I'm saying. You went through it yourself. You understand it. I know from what you just shared. I have not gone through that, but I have somebody very, very, very close to me biologically that has tried to explain it to me. And I had no idea. Actually, even what he said to me broke my heart. But that's what he said. There are no words, but he tried to explain it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very similar, a lot of the wording that you were using right there. And what you are doing is so brave and so courageous, because there are so many people out there. And let's think about it. You want to work with somebody that understands it, or you want to work with somebody that's clinically gone to school and has no idea how deep, how dark. There aren't even words in the English language to explain where you were, right?
No, exactly. And, my son, who is brilliant. He has to do his dissertation of his PhD, but he's not buying into the academic world anymore, so he's not going to do it. But he is a brilliant young man.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, Mom, you don't have any real credibility. You're not a doctor. You're not a counselor. You don't have psychiatry, training to go out and do a nonprofit to help other people with this, because, you don't have that clinical background. And I looked at him and I said, I'm not going to discount any of the feelings you've ever had, son, but I know what I felt, and I know I'm not alone, because my brother proved it on March 5th. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if I can help one person out of millions or billions that are suffering from suicide ideations, then whatever I do is worth it. And
absolutely,
when I tell you, you're under a house and you hear and you see and you feel people and you just can't move because you're just paralyzed. Mm-hmm. And that's not even, that's like scratching the surface on an analogy. right? It's like you're in your own personal hell or limbo. And everyone's like, oh, come on, don't be depressed. You have a great job and you have a house and you're so pretty or you have great hair. You know, what do you have to be depressed? Your kids are all healthy and, you know,
You
and
got
there's
a
a
great
part
job, or you got a great
yes.
life, you got a great part, and they don't get it. And what I'm going to say to you right now is that the minute you talk to somebody, meaning you, and the experience you've had, and no matter what they share with you, you will have a better idea what to say to them than say I would. And I'm going to just be honest. It's one of my sons I went through this with, and I still do. I have many a talk about death and dying, and that suicide, it removes the person's pain, but it's the people that are left behind that you never heal, including the fact that even with mediumship, how many people do you run into that even have so many regrets about taking their own lives, or they won't cross over because of, religious dogma, thinking there's hell awaiting them if they do. I mean, we can go on and on.
I read for a girl one time. I had I've had a few stores and I owned a little antique kind of like, it was kind of like a mixed bag in a little town in New Hampshire. And I'm not going to go real deep into that, but it's a college town. And now this is kind of when the secret was stuffed way down, but I couldn't help it because spirit comes and they don't get permission. They just come. So this young woman comes in my store. She's looking around. She's like, oh, it's, you have such cute stuff, blah, blah, blah. And when I say I see her dad, I don't mean like I physically, like some clairvoyant that can see. I can feel when spirit comes. I get goosebumps that come from the back of my neck, and it usually goes to the left side of my body. And I have this knowing, and it kind of takes the wind out of you for a second, and you're kind of like, okay, like someone is with you. You just know. I don't know how to explain this, but so he's like, and also I don't remember a lot of the readings I've done, but he was so strong. So he was like, I know you can hear me. So could you please tell my daughter that I'm so sorry? Because he had taken his life. Now this is in 2000 and I want to say 10 or 9. And so I couldn't just come out to her and say, hey, your dad killed himself, huh? I can't.
I know. Like, how
you can't just, so you kind of have to dance around the side. And I said, you're going to school at da-da-da. Yes, I am. Nice. All right. And, she was young, petite, pretty girl. And I said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I need to tell you this. And I said, because I have somebody with us right now. And she's like looking around this, the store.
Where's this person?
And I said, did your father pass away like when you were really, really young and called you Princess? I do remember Princess. Mm-hmm. And her face looked like I had just, basically told her she won $10 million. Like it just like, she was like shocked, like, and I said, in fact, you have a tattoo of your nickname on the back of your, like right above your buttocks. And she's like, oh my God. Now, I've never met her before. It was winter in New Hampshire. So she was fully dressed, no idea. Right. And I said, he had a drug problem and a drinking problem. And she's bawling at this point, Aww. And I said, and you've done everything in your life. You've raised your mom, basically. And I said, you've done everything in your life to make your dad proud. And I want to tell you, he's really, really proud of you. And he's there every step of the way. And when you say out loud to yourself, Daddy, I hope you see me, or I hope I'm about to graduate, or whatever, her little milestones in her life were. And I named a few. And she's full on bawling now. Thank God nobody came in the store at the time. And I was like, I want you to know he's with you and he sees everything. In fact, I even got his name right, but don't ask me because it was a long time ago and I don't remember. Yeah. So she was like, oh my God, you have no idea how much you've just helped me, because she was going through some turmoil with her mom because her mother and her had some, and we talked about that. And he gave me a message because the mother had a lot of guilt because they were separated when he killed himself, and she was about 5. And so I knew then, okay, you're not imagining this stuff. You really can.
No, you got more than evidential proof.
You can really talk to people that are passed on. And, it took me, like I said, a long time to kind of gain my stride in this. But then I read a lot of scientific, journals and medical journals and things like that. And there is no explanation. You know, we know that we are created with energy, and we know energy never dies. We don't know how it's created, and we don't know where it goes, but we know we're made up of energy. So it's very plausible that when somebody, you know, passes from this world, that their energy can still talk to other people's energy.
This is what I try and tell people, and I don't get in an argument with them, because you would get people that are sort of in our field and will say, no, there's no way that they can come back and speak to us, or they're there for every important event, or the minute you think of them, they're there. Yes, they are. They are. We go on forever. And don't get me wrong, any of us would prefer to have our loved one in physical form, but they are there. I have had physical proof of things. For example, very quickly, I was on this podcast called Inside the Mind of the Psychic, and they asked us questions that people would always want to know things at, and we gave away a prize. So I gave away a reading, and poor gentleman, John, if you're watching, your plate is coming. I made him this beautiful resin plate. It's got Metatron's cube all hand painted on it, and crystals in the middle. So he had a reading with me. I don't usually have this happen. I woke up Saturday morning, that night was the reading, and there's this elderly woman there. And again, no, we don't see them. They'll either give you a picture in the mind's eye. Sometimes that was the strangest thing for me, because I'm so clairaudient.
Or like a movie reel.
They'll give me a movie reel. Sometimes they'll give me colors. Sometimes they'll give me a smell. Depends how strong their energy is.
Yeah.
So this lady was elderly. I knew it. I could feel how much love she had for this person I was going to read for. So when we started the reading, I told him about this woman. You might have to turn it down just a little bit again, April. Sorry, because it's got a lot of feedback. Sorry, I apologize.
No, that's okay.
Okay, perfect. So anyways, I gave him the message. And he figured, because I said it feels very much like a mother energy, and mediumship is one of my newer gifts. And I said, but it's not a mother. And I described what she looked like. I could see what she looked like. He goes, oh, that's my grandma. So I gave him the message. It made no sense to me whatsoever. Made no sense to him in the beginning. By the end of the reading, it was one of the coolest readings I've ever had. It connected everything all together that was going on in his life. It was giving him guidance and what he needed to do. But that's how spirit works, right? And it's so healing to do this work, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I'm just turning up a little. I'm partially deaf because of the military, so I have to have you a little louder so I can. I could put my headphones on again and hear you, but I wanted to be free. So
okay, I was going to say, you know what story, if you wouldn't mind sharing? You shared it on Krista's show with your beautiful daughter Christina.
Yeah,
and it was the one that she was hanging out with a friend that you weren't too crazy about. As mothers, we wouldn't be when they were teenagers. And her grandmother came through, and would you feel comfortable sharing that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was one of the most profound experiences I've had thus far. And again, I find that it works best for me personally when I don't try. When I'm not, it's like one time I had my spiritual counselor, the woman who helped really save my life, along with my cognitive therapist. She said, you know what you are, April? You're a light worker, and your frequency is getting higher and higher, and you're a natural healer. I'm a natural healer as well. And I'm having like visual issues of our house is very active. And so I can feel something around me right now because I'm talking about it. It's like a law of attraction, you talk about it and they're there. Anyway, our house was built in 1890. It's really cool. And so, what was I saying? So I wasn't really trying. And I the girl right now is like another daughter. I mean, I've known her since she was about 16. She's 33 now. Lovely woman. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, because you just went off for a second. I don't know.
So weird.
Technical difficulty. Yeah, I'm like, all right, calm down. Calm down. But and I didn't dislike her as a person, but I knew she was into drugs and alcohol. I mean, and like my daughter said on the show, I couldn't get away with stuff at all when you were a mom when I was younger, because you knew, like, I just knew stuff. And it's like, not like I tried to know stuff. I just knew it. They couldn't lie to me. So basically, I was walking by the room. They were hanging out in my daughter's room. And I stopped, and I remember stopping and then kind of backing up. And I looked into the girl and I said, "Hey, so-and-so, do you have a grandmother that passed away?" Now, she's Lebanese, so she's Muslim. She was rebelling big time at this point, drinking, doing, little, I guess, recreational drugs and things like that. And my daughter was starting to get into it. I could see it changing her personality and everything. And so she looks at me and her eyes got really big, and in their belief system, this is a no, you just don't do this. This is bad. Right. And I said, well, she's here right now. And she just kind of, you could just see her kind of key up like, what, because she had heard I did tarot and I did readings, but she had never really seen it come from me yet. Right. And so I walk into the room and we sit down. And all of a sudden, my daughter says, "Mom, your eyes changed to brown, your facial contorted." She's like, "You were speaking Arabic fluently." And I was calling her by her childhood grandmother pet name that only her grandmother called her. There's no way it's Arabic. No way I could have known this. And she said, "You were telling her all this stuff that had happened to her as a kid that I would not have known," in Arabic, by the way, not in English. She started crying and freaking out. My daughter is like, "Stop, Mom, stop."
Yeah, that's what Christina said. She was like shaking you, going, "Mom, stop! You're freaking out, my friend."
Yeah, but I was like, I mean, I hate to say this, I was jumped basically by this woman, this energy, who really wanted to get through to her granddaughter because she was really worried about her, and she had a reason to be.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out, I told her that I was when I say I mean the woman. Okay. So it'll be easier for people to understand that I was okay, that I was in a really good place and happy, that I loved her more than anything in life. And this is what they told me after. And she said that, she said, all these things that you're doing right now to rebel and to get back, you're only hurting yourself and you need to stop it. It's, you're not taking care of yourself, basically. And little did she know, she didn't even know this. She had, right after that, she was with an abusive boyfriend. She was doing, recreational drugs, and she was drinking. And so she stopped, after that, she had a full belief that that was her grandmother, and her grandmother knew what she was doing. And she was so ashamed of herself that she started having health problems. She went to the doctor. She had a major health crisis. And if she had not stopped, she would have died. It was super serious, and she didn't even know about it. And she doesn't drink or do anything now. She's super, and she's like a hot shot in New York City, and she's super happy. She's a great person. But she said and she broke up with a boy. She didn't date him anymore. She got away from the abuser, and it changed her life. And I think retrospectively looking back, this is why I look at it when people from my childhood who have a steep religious belief in whatever religion they believe in, and they say that's the devil. I don't think so. Because why would the devil want to help somebody? If participate in that paradigm for a moment, why would that change the trajectory of her life and saved her life? Yeah. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying that was told to me years later that happened. Yeah. And all I know is I don't see how something that if you help people with something and you make a difference in their life because you give them information that they need to know to help assist them in if it's health, love, whatever it is, if you can do that and it helps them, how is that bad?
It's not bad. But that's the problem with religious dogma, right? And the same as with the paranormal, because we're going to pull up some of your pictures very shortly you sent me. We get a lot of earthbound spirits for many different reasons. I've had people contact me that obviously have mediumistic abilities. I had somebody message me and say, I opened my bathroom door. I might have to get you turned down just a wee bit. Sorry. And she opened the bathroom door. And when she opened the bathroom door, she said there was this girl standing there, 9 months pregnant, soaking wet, screaming, "He killed my baby. He killed my baby. He killed my baby." And I said, well, where did she go? We knew it was a girl in spirit. She said, she's somewhere hiding in my living room. So she wanted no part of that. Got to respect it. She want to deal with it. But I tried to connect with this girl and cross her over. But like you said, when it's a movie, part of what she showed me, what had happened, I guess the boyfriend had always been abusive, didn't want the baby, and decided to get rid of her and the baby, and he drowned her. So I guess, I guess it happened quickly, unexpectedly. She may not even have realized she was dead, because that happens, as you well know, when people pass quickly. And can you imagine what that must be like? You don't know you're dead, and you're wandering around, nobody can hear you, nobody can see you, and you find someone that can hear you,
Oh,
right?
that's what I was trying to say. Like I told you, I'm like squirrel. So my spiritual guide told me that if you are a ship and you're out to sea and it's totally black and you need to get to land because you need to dock, whatever, and you see off at a distance a lighthouse and you see that light going on, that's what we are. We're light workers. We're a beacon of light in a dark gray, I don't want to say area, where if you resonate on that vibration and they know you can feel or see them or hear them, they are attracted to you.
Isn't that
And
so cool? Your guide gave you that. You know what my guide gave me?
hmm,
Was that if you're looking at a map, all of humanity is little pinpricks of light. But people like yourself and myself, who would be considered light workers, we're like driving down a highway, pitch black, and you're looking for a place to stay. And all of a sudden, those old flashing vacancy motel signs, that's what
mhm.
that is, or like a bonfire. So they see it right away. Isn't that
Yeah.
cool? The
And
analogies.
and for everybody who's listening, I want them to like close their eyes for a minute. And imagine you get home, you leave during the day, and you're not expecting to get home, and it's pitch black dark, and you're fumbling around for your keys because you're trying to open the keys, you get to the door lock. What are you gonna do the first thing? You're gonna turn on the light, right? So you can see. That's exactly what we are. Like we're the light that they flick on, so they can see and communicate. That's the best way I can describe it.
I love it. I love it. So now that was a profound experience, but you shared a few experiences. But you said that I know people love to hear about the paranormal, but let's get back to these houses you've lived in. What are some of the things you've encountered? I know, again, I'm not trying to copy Chris's podcast, but it's some interesting things that with Christina there, some of the things that you encountered.
Hold on just a second, because you're saying I'm having feedback, so I have somebody do that. Okay.
Yeah, Chris, just when I talk, you can hear it. Now that's way better. That's way better. Can you
How do
hear
I
me?
turn it on? Oh, hold on.
No worries.
I'm going to put this on. I think it might help with the feedback.
No worries.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Is that better?
It is amazing.
Oh, thank
We
you.
got no feedback. Thanks, Chris. I guess we did need the headphones tonight.
I took them off because you're like,
Well, I don't usually use headphones, but maybe the way Chris's system is set up, maybe that's why he said you need to wear headphones. Remember, he said.
Well,
before.
we got a really good microphone, and we
Yeah.
literally have a studio here now, so it should work. That's why I was like, why isn't this working? I'm glad too. Now I can really hear you well, and I can still hear, but my hearing, I have tinnitus really bad because of all the guns I shot. So I have a lot of ringing in my ears. So you're like, feedback. You don't know what feedback is. I've got it right now. Because of the tinnitus. It's okay. Okay. So other experiences. Let's see. There's been so many. I don't even know which one.
Well, I remember when Christina was on this show with you, you were saying that practically every house you've lived in, stop baby, my dog now has decided to come over. I have a large German Shepherd. She usually makes an appearance, and she's decided she's going to come say hello.
Hi.
Emmy, I love it. Come on, you can go say hello. This is Emmy.
Oh my goodness, that's not a lap dog.
No, she thinks she is. She thinks she is. Don't tell me you have to go outside. You're going to have to wait there, dog. Cross your legs. No, you were talking about every house that you've lived in, you've had activity.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had a lot of malevolent, or have you had like some, benevolent kind spirits, or both? Or
so the first house I ever bought was in New England. It was in New Hampshire, and the house was built in 1850, and it was this cape. And it was 2 stories. I had like a back hidden staircase. I had like really weird little rooms. I don't know. They're like little rooms that were like all connected to each other in old houses,
Right.
hardwood floors, the whole deal. And we knew that the woman that lived there died in the house. She was a smoker. So it took us like, I think 3-4 months to get all the nicotine off the walls and, paint and do all that stuff. But at the time, my youngest daughter was like 11 months old when we bought it. And so our room was up the top of the stairs. There was a landing, and to the right was our room. And then right across the landing was this little tiny room, and it had this like weird window that kind of went like sideways. Mm-hmm. And we put her crib in there, and that was her little nursery kind of. And so we would hear footsteps and things like that. And, my kids would be like, looking at me like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, it's nothing. It's an old house. It's settling. You don't want to scare your kids, when they're that age. Yeah. So I remember one night specifically, and this happened several nights after this. We heard my daughter, who was about a year at the time, cooing and laughing and giggling, and it was like 2:00 in the morning. And so we go across the hallway and peek in, and she's sitting in her crib on her butt, and she's interacting with something.
Wow.
Something we can't see. And she's like handing that something to this, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And she's giggling. She's like, hey, she's like a baby. She's giggling like it was just like playing with that entity. And my husband at the time and I look at each other and we're like, what is that?
The hell?
And so we're like, okay. So we tuck her in and feed her a bottle and, put her to bed. And every night after that, 2-3 in the morning, same thing. Like, and we would come in the morning and wake up. She'd be completely like covered and like tucked in. Like tucked in, it's just, it was crazy. But so that was benevolent. It was a nice spirit. But then before we moved to that house, we lived in Salem, Massachusetts for a while.
You had lots of stories about there, didn't you?
If anybody ever wants to go and see a charged area of energy, go to Salem, and don't go on the cheesy witch tours and ghost tours and all that stuff. Go with a local who knows the area and can tell you real Salem history. So we lived in this big threeplex. It was 3 floors. And there was if you ever been, are you familiar with New England? They'll have a lot of
I've never been there, but
they have a lot of houses like by the ocean. And those were like the captain's homes. Sea captains would have homes right by the ocean. So this used to be a captain's home. It was on Mason Street in Salem. And, it was creepy. It was very creepy. We're on the 2nd floor, and I'll remember one day I was making dinner, and I had my daughter in the high chair, and the other kids were in the other part of the apartment playing, and my husband at the time was working. And I turn around, and I had this like chill, kind of like cold, like a burst of cold air. And it was summer, kind of go across the back of my neck. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's weird, So I turn around, and I look, and in full regalia is a guy in a captain like uniform, the hat, everything, walks right past me, like really slow, and looks at me and just off into the wall. And I was like, that was the first time I've ever seen something manifest like that. I mean, you could feel all of the energy in that room, like being sucked out into like whatever this thing was forming. And I freaked out because this is like, again, I've had this gift my whole life. This is before I told, the whole like jumping and the channeling I did with, this is way, way, way before that. So I was freaking out. So I ran upstairs. Our landlord lives upstairs, and I'm banging on the door, and I'm like, who's the guy in the sea captain outfit? He's like, oh, you met the captain. Oh, he lived here like 150, 200 years ago.
Well, could you not have told me before I moved in?
I'm like, that would have been nice. So we had, there was this back room, and I promise whoever's listening to this, I swear on my children's eyes, we put a cross in there. We came back, it was upside down. We'd come back, it'd be off the wall. there was a closet, and it was like a 3/4 door, and it was freezing in that closet, like
Wow.
freezing in that closet, no matter what time of the year. We literally, whatever was in there was so vile that we had to close off that part of the apartment and
Wow.
move everything to like the right side of the apartment and live, because it was a pretty big space. And my baby had her own room, and she had a crib, and we would hear footsteps, we'd hear things, we'd hear stuff dragging. So, well, we went in there one night, and the crib was dragged from the corner of the room all the way to the window, and the window was open, and the crib was down.
Oh my God. I've got tears. You tell me, and I'm not a crier. Oh my
And
God.
I was like, holy bleep. And so
I've got goosebumps right now. You telling me that.
that was it. We were done. So we moved the crib into our room, and then we like I don't even know how long we stayed past that. Like, it wasn't long. We were out. That's when we bought the house with the nice lady that played with the baby. But yeah, there was some freaky stuff that happened in that house. And I don't think that was the captain, because there's a lot of
there has to be a lot of energy in there when it's been around that long.
Well, you have houses that are built in the 1600s there.
Wow. Because in our old house, and I lost everything to lose that house 2 years ago, January 3rd. And I don't care. Don't miss it. Doesn't matter. There had to be numerous portals open there. I've sent you a couple of the EVPs that came through there that are just insane. And my partner, Dell's been thrown 15 feet across the kitchen. He almost died because of something trying to kill him.
Wow.
And after that, one of us, it was usually me, stayed awake all night long to make sure everybody was safe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with my first husband, it was my first husband's house, growing up in that house. He said they never had anything, and it kind of started when we moved into this house. My eldest at the time was 15 months old, and he spoke a little bit late, but he never could settle in that room very well. Once he started to talk, he kept saying something in my closet, something in my closet. And the one thing, as a parent, or anybody that's a parent out there, you always check on your children when you go to bed. We just do, right? You just go do, kind of give them a kiss or make sure they're covered up, whatever. 3 to 4 times a week we would go in there when he was about 3 or 4. And we had those bunk beds that were kind of up on posts, a bunk bed or bed, but there was a desk underneath. My son would be lying on his back in a pool of vomit, not even knowing he had vomited. We'd have to strip the whole bed, the whole bit. It got so bad because both my boys are gifted, just like Christina and your kids, I'm sure are. I know Christina is because I saw her on the podcast with you. But he never slept in that room. That room was empty. He had to move a mattress by your bed. Never went back in that room. When I had somebody clear the house, and was a very woo-woo light worker, as I call her. I can tell you're not a woo-woo light worker. I'm not. Nothing wrong with it. Just people are living the really astral
love and
part.
light, love and light.
Yes.
Burn some sage. That'll take care of everything. Now you might piss it off, so you got to be careful.
Yeah. Yes. So what happened was, and her mom had just died, and she wasn't expecting it because she was a medium. And she had been told to come. She was going to be in for the fight of her life. I wish I had videotaped what had happened, because she went past my younger son's room and she said, "Oh, I don't like what's in there." She said, "We're going to leave that to last." I kid you not, it was a day, 80 degrees outside, not a cloud in the sky. She went in that room. She passed out. She had tears rolling out her eyes. The wind was whipping around outside. You could hear it. Looked like there were clouds just flying past. The energy was so insane. It was crazy. But anyway, she told me that there was a little girl trapped in that room for centuries in that closet and was so angry, and that's what was causing all the issues. I don't think it was any little girl.
No, that's a deal. I was going to say somebody was screwing around with their cult.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no. Well, it's funny you say that, because
somebody called that in there, whether they realized it or not. That's not a little girl.
How this all started, April, was about 16 years ago. I had hurt my back long before that, but I was with my first husband, and we had just watched that movie, The Secret. And if I could get up and get around, I was making all kinds of like pet accessories, and anywhere I went to local businesses, they wanted to carry it without getting any compensation. And I remember saying that to my ex-husband. He won't care if I mention his name. We're still good friends. It was Earl. So I said this to Earl, and Earl said, "Well, maybe it's the secret." I said, "Maybe it is." Well, lo and behold, that night I had a dream that I remember so vividly, like it's like it happened 15 minutes ago. To make a long story short, it was something that identified itself as demonic, gave me its name, spelt it for me. First of all, tried to get me to follow it and agree, and it would give me whatever I wanted. And I can't say on radio what I told it to do. And then it got very cynical with me, waving its finger, told me what animal every time I saw it, a crow, I'd know who it was. And I guess I called on Archangel Michael in the dream. And words can't explain the brilliant flash of royal blue, silver, and white. I woke up completely drenched, soaking wet from sweating. I was crying and shaking, and I'm not a
I've got
crier.
goosebumps. Yeah.
Yeah, well, all hell broke loose after that. That's how this happened.
Literally.
Yeah.
Probably literally.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like on that instance that there was definitely something that invited it in and that it had nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I
like
think there was more than one because everybody.
you just had an orb fly by you, by the way.
Did I? Oh, everybody tells. You know what? Not on the show. I don't usually do my show down here. Dell's usually does his show down here, but he's out at camp, so I usually do it up in my room. So that's interesting. But I think that's the first time I heard that in this house.
Yeah.
They don't forget you though. You still get things.
Their energy.
Yeah, it's energy.
Mm-hmm. I think energy has a built-in memory. Mm-hmm. Although, it always, there's just so many theories out there of like life itself and existential, views on like who are you, where do we come from, and there's this, you decide who you're going to be born to and you come back to, live that life to fulfill that.
Yeah.
I don't want to say karmic debt, but like that, the mission or the lessons that you apparently didn't learn way back in one of your other iterations, right? Mm-hmm. So I used to say, man, I must have been like Mussolini or something. Because look at the stuff I had to learn this life. I wouldn't quite say Hitler, but that was probably pretty bad because this has been a very tumultuous, difficult road up until a few years ago. But I wouldn't change anything for the world because
that's what I say. But you know what? I have to be honest with you. Anybody that I have met that's in the light worker field, especially, I have met very, very few people. I could probably count on one hand if I'm lucky that have had a Brady Bunch growing up. Mm-hmm. Many of us have very similar stories. And I don't know if it's the way I've likened it to, I think, is that we're older souls. Somehow it's like whomever or however we got here knew we'd be able to withstand it, but it also, like you said, you embrace it all because it makes you who you are today. Mm-hmm. But you're able to help a lot of people because of what you've been through too, right?
Absolutely. I mean, my cognitive therapist Terry, she literally saved my life. This is a 2015, so this is about 3 years before my brother died, and I can't even tell you the hours of phone calls my brother would sit on the phone with me and help me get through the night, the next day to get to the next day. But she's told me one time. Now I grew up. My parents were born in the early 30s, so they were born right after the stock market crash and during the Great Depression and all, and then World War II and all that stuff. So. She would say, your greatest vulnerability, your greatest strengths are often lie in your perceived greatest vulnerability. And it took me years to unpack that and say, no, because I can't show weakness. I can't show that I'm sad. I can't show these things because what will people think? Or like, then that makes me a crybaby or whatever that situation is. But in sharing my stories, I've done lectures, speeches. And by the way, I gave my brother's eulogy, hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. I don't know either. I had my sisters, all of my daughters, all of my nieces, my nephews, my sister-in-law and I are like sisters. We call each other sisters. We're basically soul sisters, bawling. And my brother and I were like this.
It sounds like you were.
And I didn't cry. And this is the funniest story. I could see my brother in back of me, full uniform. He had so many medals, he couldn't wear them all. A crazy 30 years as a combat helicopter pilot, many missions, saved many lives, brave guy, was posthumously awarded for saving like 5 or 6 Marines in Afghanistan, got him out there. The chopper got shot down, but he landed it safely and saved everybody's life. I got goosebumps. He's here. But I could see him I could see him like standing against the casket, kind of like with one leg up and his arms folded, like, man, sis, you're making me look good. And I was in my head, I'm like, shut up, would you? Because I'm trying to do this without crying, you bastard. I can't start laughing because maybe everything I've been saying, But like, I was so sad, but laughing in my head so much because he was like communicating with me when I'm saying all this stuff.
He was helping you still while you're doing one of the most difficult things.
I get through it. And my favorite quote I committed to memory a few years before he passed was, let love not be the tie that binds us. Instead, let it be the sea that flows between the shores of our soul.
Oh, I love that.
And it's an unknown author. And I thought about that, and that was what I closed the eulogy with. And I literally feel that is what we're here for, is this like flowing, we're these creatures that are just capable of so much love.
Oh my God.
And abundance.
Or what we're capable of. We've been told that's not possible, that we can't do it, yes, we can. We are
absolutely
amazing. Yes. And
absolutely.
Love.
So getting through the eulogy and then having him there and everything, it was a very profound experience for me. And after I was done with the eulogy, I had, I don't know, there's probably 100 people there. I to be honest with you, I was pretty shook up, so I didn't really have a lot of cognitive abilities at that time. But I had this guy come up to me and he said, are you a public speaker? And I said, no. And he's like, because I just actually had taken 2 public speaking classes for school. I was petrified of public speaking. So which is why I can't believe I'm doing this now. This is funny.
I know. Now you were, when we talked before, I know you were a little bit nervous, and I told you we're not going to have enough time to talk about everything we want to talk about, because I know Karen so well. When she told me, she said it about 3 times. I think you should really, I'm not telling you what to do, but you should really connect with April. I think you 2 are really going to hit it off.
That's very sweet of her.
It was.
And I said no, but but it was right. So at that moment, I kind of I was like, this is what I got to do. This is what I've got to do. I've got to spread this message of love. And that's why the nonprofit is called Lenny's Love. And you're not gonna find it online or anything yet, because I launched it like a soft launch last. Yeah, but I don't have my website up, and
I was looking for you on, I think it was Instagram. I was looking for you to tag you, and it comes up, but there's nothing on it yet. You're right, but
no, I haven't pursued it because let's just see, folks. I sold a house and moved cross country. I have a new boyfriend. I'm in school full time, and I own a business in California that I'm about ready to shut it down here soon. And I'm launching another business, so I've been a little bit busy. So Lenny's Love is this year. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, because we're going to go a little bit past 11 if you're okay with that.
Oh, I'm fine.
We started a little bit late, but I'd love to show some of these pictures that you shared with me. Now, hopefully I do this right. If for some reason I disappear, guys, just hang in there, because I can log right back in. But I'm going to go to brand. I think this is how you do it. I've done it before. Usually it's with video, but I think it'll overlay over top our faces. Now let's preface these pictures a little bit. So where were they taken, and why did you take them?
Okay, so I can't see anything yet?
I didn't put anything up. Do you want me to just put one up right now?
Yeah.
Okay, there's one right there.
Okay, so if the viewing audience can see that, you see this guy.
They can see it. Mhm.
Okay, so that's a flash of a camera. That's not an outdoor light. It's pitch black. It's in Casadega, Florida,
Mhm.
and it's a known spiritualist town that was formed, I think, in 1874 by a Mr. Colby, who was told by his guides to go find a place in Florida and make a spiritual camp there. And
Okay.
that band that's above him, like that
Mhm.
orby kind of band, that's what you would call an orb or a band, a spirit band. And he's a total stranger. I don't know who this is, honestly.
Okay.
We went on a orb tour to experience Casadega at night and to see what we could get. So if you want to go to the next one,
Sure. I probably should have started. Well, we'll end with the really interesting one at the
Okay.
end because that one is crazy. But go
So,
ahead.
so according to the woman who gave us the tour, and she's been in the spiritual camp, I think for like 7 or 8 years, and she's been doing this orb tour for about 7 years, and she is in training to be a spiritualist teacher and healer as well. Now, if you look at her, you'll see to your right, you'll see orbs, and it's like yellow, green, red, like a rainbow kind of. Those
Yeah.
are super, super rare. And my understanding was, pardon me because I'm new to this kind of thing because I've never really gotten into orbs, but
Right.
that is supposedly like a fairy, like a group of fairies or a fairy orb. And then if you look up to her, like 11 o'clock or 10:30, you'll see like a tiny little like white one there.
Oh my gosh.
It's real light and stuff. That's another orb.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm into fairies. I was going to say to you earlier when we were talking, I don't think my partner actually was talking to me about fairies this summer. And because I know you'd mentioned about your daughter, Christina, you call her the fairy whisperer. Was that
I
what it was?
do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we actually were talking about fairies because he's really into finding out about the little people with the First Nations cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about fairies. I said, God, in 13 years, I never thought we'd ever be talking about fairies, but he actually believes in them now.
Okay, so remind me if we're
Okay.
done about that conversation about little people and fairies
Okay.
and Native American, because I want to touch on that. Okay, so obviously you see the same guy and you see in the front of the camera that white spot,
Yes.
big orb. So again,
what about the mist too? It looks like there's a bit of a mist.
There's a bit of a mist, and it's, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there is a bit of a mist to the left. You can see it kind of forming there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then above him also. So go ahead.
I turned that one picture that you sent me that looks kind of creepy. It was kind of sideways. I turned it right side up when I uploaded it too. So, because it was sideways.
Now this one is definitely misting. And some people would say, oh, that's just, your flash or it was pitch black and the same guy. And when I was aiming my phone camera at him, I was like, click, 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 click. Every 4 seconds it takes for your, camera to take a picture. So this mist was forming around him.
Interesting. And you and I have not discussed these pictures before. So I mentioned about the mist. I didn't know what this was actually. I just had the pictures. So, okay, here we go. There's this one.
Okay, this young girl, obviously she's got two prominent orbs right above her. I mean, this is like the orb central place. I can't really tell you, but Casadega, it's like it's loaded with, it's a spiritual camp.
Can you see them when the flash goes off, or just the camera picks them up?
Only the camera. They're not visible to your naked eye. Although we did see a lot of things shooting like in front of us really fast. You could see that energy go by.
Okay.
But like off in the distance like that in the dark, you can't see it with your naked eye. That's actually the camera picking up that energy.
Yeah, but you get people that become real skeptics about orbs. Sorry,
that's okay.
The wrong one.
I'm not here to please them or explain anything.
I think this is miraculous. I didn't question it in any way when you sent them to me, and sometimes I will, like when it's obvious dust and it's dust. But
okay, what does that orb look like to you? Because I don't want to say it online.
It looks exactly like what we both think it looks like.
I went up to the guy and I said, I got this on you. And he looks at me and I'm like, it looks like a beep. He's like, he just looked at me, a total stranger, like I was crazy. My girlfriend and I that went to the tour were cracking up. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you can see the tail
on it. Is on the tree trunk down below near the ground.
Yeah, there's two of us. Yeah. Keep going.
Probably some character trying to make people laugh.
Now this one, you see that big one to the right? That's called a band. That's an orb band. It's crazy. They're like, yeah.
Interesting. Now, did any of these people report feeling anything as
a few of them did, most of them did not.
Okay.
But I will tell you, if you can see where he's standing right behind him, there's like a cutout in the grass, and you're supposed to stand on that. When you stand on that, it's almost like you're entering a portal because the energy shifts from like this dimension, and because behind that it's all swamp and stuff, right? I was like looking it back at me and like, there better not be a damn snake or an alligator coming up on me. Like I'm not gonna be too happy, right, if I get like eaten by a gator doing this. But yeah, it was like crazy. But yeah, that was it. The energy here is, if anybody has a chance to go to Casadega, they're having their big bonanza in February with tons of vendors, and the spiritualists and the readings are not cheap, but I had a reading as well when I was there, and that was interesting too, but it was an incredible experience. So you want to go to the next
one? Nice. Okay, we'll go to the next one.
So this lady was so sweet. We kept in touch. Oh, and by the way, my girlfriend tells the lady who's giving the tours that I'm a medium, and a clairvoyant. And so after that, it was like, it's like being in the military and having prior military experience, and like, oh, April was in the, Air Force. Oh, she can be the squad leader. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be the squad leader. So she's like, April's a medium. And so the lady's like, April, what do you feel? And I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to I just want to be a layman right now.
I just want to just turn it all off and
just be, enjoy. Right?
I wish. Puppy.
She's a doll, this woman, but that's a rainbow orb as well. Like you can see like the different colors, and people like, oh, that's just like, your camera picking up.
Her hand moving.
Okay, you can see like a house behind it kind of with the lights on.
Yep.
But this area is pitch black. So the way it looks so like bright is because people were like, I waited till everybody's cameras were done, and then I clicked this. And it's like she was holding this. It was incredible. And I wish I had some of the pictures that there's literally the guy's face that they made a bust out of, and they put it like on a plaque, the Colby man. Right. And there is a picture that this woman has of his face materializing next to this in the middle of the night. It's like, I have never seen anything like this before in a picture. It was insanely accurate. It was him. It's no doubt about it. The mustache, the old garb, with the tie and just, it was insane. But go ahead.
Wow. Here, let me go up here. So at least I figured out what to do. I've done this once before. Oh, no, we want to show it. Show us. There we go.
Okay, now, can you blow that up at all?
I don't know. Let me see if I can. I don't think I can.
Okay, so the viewers, if you can bear with me here. If you look at this girl, look to the left of her. If I'm looking at her, I'm looking to the left of her. There is a dragon head.
Oh, I know why you're saying it. Yeah, because we can hardly see it. But
you can barely see it. But that dragon head wraps entirely around her body and comes out, and you can see it coming from the ground. It's incredible, this picture. I took this one. I took them all, the ones that we showed you. But this one, I was like, I saw it, and I showed the lady that's going to tour. I go, what is this? And she goes, I've never seen anything like this. I
remember. Yeah. Because when you see
it, you can see it clearly. Like you can see the outcut of the ears. The head looks like, comes down like this. You can see the eyes. Like it's crazy.
Maybe what I'll do, I'll try and post the pictures, if with your permission. Maybe I'll try and post them with the announcement on my Facebook page and in my groups. I have Paranormal University and the Angel Rocker Tribe, so I'll try and post these pictures too, so people can have a better look and see what you're talking about. I think that's the same one. There was two of them, so.
Yeah, you can go to the next. Yeah. The other one I sent you, I enlarged it. This is the same man and woman, sweetheart. You can see the orb flying over their head. Just a little standard orb, like they're standard, right?
This is the one I righted because it was sideways.
Okay, so now that is my thumb, in all full disclosure. So this could be a double exposure.
Yeah,
I don't know, but what trips me out about it, the pictures before it, which you can still see my thumb, and the pictures after it, because remember, I'm going click, 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 and all these people. It's clear as day. You can see the guy. You can make out. But this one, there is something behind him, almost mimicking him. Now, when we had our orientation for the tour, she had several pictures she showed us of spirit behind people standing in that spot behind them, mimicking them.
Well, if it was a double exposure, though, you would think the tree would be double exposed as well.
Oh, that's good. See, you're so smart. I agree
Yeah.
with you. So I think, and this guy was trying to impress this girl he was dating that was there, and she was terrified. And he had brought ghost hunting equipment with him and had no idea what the heck he was doing. And she was like, she kind of stuck by me because she's like, oh my God, I don't know what he's going to bring home. I'm so afraid. And
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. So I told her a few things to do. And I looked at him and I said, you know, do you believe in like a higher power? Are you protecting yourself? Are you laying any kind of foundation down, you know, when you do this kind of stuff? So you're not like inadvertently taking anything home or attracting anything. And I know what I'm doing, you know, the whole machismo mode.
Oh, that's sad.
And I looked at her and I looked at him and I said, you have young kids? And she's like, yes. And I said, I'd be very, very careful because this isn't a frivolous hobby.
Absolutely.
People get hurt. You can't just go out. You can, but you don't know what you're going to bring home. So you got to be careful.
Okay, so I'm going to give an analogy very quickly, and I use this very many times on the show. Doing what this young man is doing, and those are the kind of people that usually contact me for help. They're in their 20s, maybe
30s.
30s. Okay, but they don't know what they're doing. And they're mimicking what they see on TV. They're possibly a bit of a loner. And then they take something from the place they went to, or they do something ridiculous. They don't protect their energy. And then all hell breaks loose at their house and they need help. So what I say is, this would be like somebody hearing that a chainsaw is great to cut down a chain link fence. Somehow they manage to get to the hardware store, buy a chainsaw. They're able to get it going. Okay. So when they start to cut the chain link fence and it kicks back and cuts off their arm, they're absolutely shocked. They can't figure out how this could happen. It's because you didn't have somebody show you how. It's just a tool. Same thing like I say with Ouija boards, but you got to have somebody teach you how to use it, how to protect your energy, how to close the session, how to open the session, and so on and so forth.
It all goes back to energy work. It really does. It's all about it's all centered around the premise of universal energy. Absolutely. I agree with you.
Thank you.
Do you have the one with the yellow?
Did I miss it? Let me, because I
that's the ones I wanted to. That one's because the blue orbs are the most rare orbs. So
give me a minute. I'm going to look like it disappeared, but I'm here. Hopefully, it doesn't cut off. If it does, I will be right back. Can you hear me?
No? Yeah, I can hear. I can hear you.
Good. I look like it's black here because I tried to grab all the pictures you sent me. Give me 1 sec. I got to find you in here. There you are. Okay, let me see. It had you said a yellow orb?
A yellow band and then a blue orb off to the side.
How did I miss that one?
I don't know.
You know what number it was? Because I've got 1, 2, 3.
I think I sent it to you last by itself.
Oh, by itself? I don't know if I got that. Oh, you did. I forgot these. Thank you. Here, it looks like he's holding a lightsaber.
Kinda. That's me.
Oh, okay, then there's a face in it. Because I got those ones I forgot to upload. Let me see if there's any more. Nope, those are the other ones. So give me a sec. We'll head back in here. Just let me upload them. It'll take me 2 seconds.
I just sent it to you again in case. So.
Oh, did you? Okay, well, I can't open it on there, but I'll open it on here if we have to. Okay. Whoa, you've got a lot of files. Okay, I'll delete them. Hang on. Don't be getting cranky about this. StreamYard's getting cranky with me.
Who is?
StreamYard. I said delete. I'll delete them so we can make some room so they won't get mad. It's saying they've used too many files. So I'm going to delete these files. Just 1 sec, guys. Thanks for your patience. So that we can upload these, because these are pretty cool pictures you sent me. So give me 1 sec and we'll make some room so that doesn't. There, now it finally put it in here. I think I took them all out. No, I got one more to take out. Okay, so there's this one. No, that's not the one.
That's the one that I blew up a little bit.
That's one too. It didn't let me do it. So let me upload it now. Photo library. 1, 2. Let's see if it'll add it. Yes, now it's happy to add it. So there's that one.
There you go. So that's me.
Okay.
Now you see that big yellow band?
Yeah.
Like
It looks
that
like
it's like
you're holding a lightsaber from far
yeah,
away.
no,
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm my arms are out like this,
Mhm.
right? And I'm like, and they said, okay, call to a spirit, like if you want to talk to somebody, because it's a spirituals camp.
Mhm.
So I called to my brother, and that's when my friend took that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at how bright
And
his light is.
yeah, and yellow orange is I forgot what color they told me what that represents. Honestly, I don't know a lot about orbs, but that was incredible.
Mhm.
Now, if you look over to the right, there's a faint blue orb.
Yeah.
Blue orbs are the rarest, and if you have a camera or you screenshot this if you're watching, and
Mhm. Blow it up.
you open that up, you can kind of make a face out in that orb. It's crazy.
Oh, you're right. I did see that with the one that you sent me. Yes. Okay,
Hmm.
now what about this one?
That's it.
That's it. I thought that was the
That's
one. Okay.
yeah, like you can see faces in it. It's
Yes.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's quite the faces that are in there. You can see it
Hmm.
definitely. Of course, you're going to get people saying that it's completely escaping my name. I know, or my brain. I know what the name of it is, where the body or the brain makes faces out of things because it's human nature, basically. But no, you can see it. And my theory is, if everybody can see it, I don't think it's a. I don't think it's. God, why is that escaping my brain? Somebody will put it in the chat. I'm sure what the name of it is when we see things. It's something Elia. I'm trying to think what it is. I
I know
know
what
the
you're
name of
talking
it.
about,
I
but I don't
I
know the
have
name.
the name of this. I use it all the time, and of course now because I'm thinking of it. Let me see if I can find it while we're talking. But those are incredible pictures. So how
Hmm.
long ago did you do those?
We went like a week ago.
Oh, just a week ago.
Yeah, I was in
Okay.
Florida for a few days. Yeah.
Ah, I can see the darn thing on the page, and every time I go to say it, it disappears in my brain. It's gonna drive me nuts.
You know what I say to people, who want to pick stuff like this apart?
Hmm.
It's fine. Pick it apart. I
Hmm.
mean, you should
Oh,
question
hang on.
everything. You
I
shouldn't
didn't take it
trust
off there.
me or anybody else. You should question everything and do your own research and go to places like Casadega and experience it.
Oh, what did I?
Honestly.
Sorry about that, guys. I got it off there finally because it was still up there. I was trying to get rid of it for you.
Okay.
Paradolia. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Thank you. I know that word. I knew somebody would type it. Thank you so much, Dave. Dave's a really cool astrologer. I've had him on the show before.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he usually tunes in, and I told him you were coming on. Lots of people knew you were coming on tonight, so I'm glad I got to have you on. So let's talk about your podcast because we only got a few more
Sure.
minutes, and I think your podcast idea is phenomenal. I've
Well, thank
never
you.
heard of anything like this. So go ahead, take it away.
Well, it's going to be on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network. It's launching in February. I don't have a hard date yet. I'm still looking. I'm still trying to gather together the panel for the first show. So, unlike a lot of podcasts, will have a couple hosts, or they'll have a host with a couple, maybe one guest, two guests, whatever. So, I'm all about approaching anything that I do with reality, like a reality as far as like research and really understanding and unpacking that, right? So when I want to do a podcast is a podcast is a podcast, right? So I want to do something that's different and also
Yes.
credible.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is the first show is going to be about near-death experiences. So
Right
I
up
will
my
be,
alley.
yeah. So I'll be getting somebody who's actually, or maybe two people who's actually experienced that, like have died and have come back
Yeah.
and can tell their story. Then I want to get a psychologist, and I want to get a doctor and maybe a nurse, and then I'll get an anthropologist. Possibly, somebody else from the scientific field, maybe anthropologist, archaeologist, that will talk about different cultural belief systems throughout history, what their, view of like life after death and things like that. Maybe even an indigenous person, that has, explanations for this experience. And, I have 3 questions that I ask everybody, like every, and it's going to be unpacking that. And then I'm going to do a show on suicide as well. So like for
I think that's so
instance,
important.
so the suicide, and I want to clarify something too. I would love to say we can save every single person from taking their own life. That's not reality because we're not living their life. So we don't know the pain that they're in. So I approach suicide, the topic of suicide, in a much different format. I think it's important to take the stigma out of the subject so people can feel
Yes.
comfortable to talk about it. And
Plus, that might be
that's
their exit point too. That might be the. Sorry, my nose looking. I got to put my dog out. Sorry, while we're talking, she's driving me insane, and
that's okay.
it's 40 below outside right now. So she wants. I'm not kidding with the wind chill. It's. I've got the fireplace on. Christmas
Oh my
Christmas
goodness.
trees are still up because it's Ukrainian Christmas, and my partner's half Ukrainian. It needs to
Oh,
come down this week, but it's freezing, so I know she's not going to stay out there. That's why. I tried putting her off. She's knocking my camera over. But sorry, this was an important topic. I apologize. And it
no, it's
is
okay.
to remove the
So
stigma. Go ahead.
so on the suicide show, it's going to be psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, somebody who has attempted, like myself, but I won't
Mhm.
interview myself, so it'll be somebody else, and then somebody or two people who have survived a family member. Like I'm going to have my sister because it was my brother.
Mhm.
His wife is going to be on the first show,
Oh,
and then I'm going to have a Native American
mhm.
person of origin and an archaeologist
Mhm.
or an anthropologist rather.
Right.
And I'm going to have clergy, the Abrahamic religions. I want to get a pastor or a priest. I want
Mhm.
to get a rabbi, and I want to get a oh my gosh, Muslim. I can't think of the word. I can't think of the name, but their
I
version of a
I
pastor.
know what you're talking. That's a
And
lot of
and
work.
imam and imam. I think it's called imam. I'm not.
I'm
I'm
not sure, but I.
and then I want to like talk about suicide and
Yeah.
okay, so Abrahamic religions go. What's your question to
Mhm.
you? What
Yeah.
is blah 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 blah? And then somebody who's attempted. So
Mhm.
I'm not going to ask you why you did it, but I'm going to ask you what you experienced from that. What
Yeah.
did you take away from that? And then
Yeah.
somebody who survived it, they're emotional. And then archaeologists, like in, ancient Japan, it was an honor to commit, you know,
Carrie.
yeah. So I want to kind of unpack these topics
Mhm.
in a multidisciplinary way where we can dissect this thing, and next
Mhm.
can go Bigfoot, spirits, orbs, fairies, ET.
I love it.
It doesn't matter. It just
Mhm.
the pool of information is endless. But I believe, like, in order to really look at something, you really have to look at
Dissect it.
perspectives
Mhm.
from every angle, or at least try to represent most of the angles so you can actually look at that subject.
I think that's really important and it hasn't been done. I think because it's a big endeavor to get that many people all in the same room at the same time, and you're obviously there's going to be times when you're really going to have differing views, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
depending. The one thing I was going to ask you within your death experience, have you ever come across people who've had a hellish experience? I have, but have you ever heard of that before? Somebody having an experience like that?
No, I've seen my father literally in front of my eyes have an NDE.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, I flew cross country because had a bad heart and he was supposedly
Mm-hmm.
going to die that night, and so I was in New Hampshire. I flew to
Mm-hmm.
California, and he's in his hospital bed, and I remember him. My sisters and myself are in the hospital, and he
Yeah.
reaches out and he's talking and
Mm-hmm.
he's reaching out, and it was like somebody was like petting his
Mm-hmm.
hand, and he was like, "Oh, that feels good. All right, I understand. I know. All right, Ma," because he calls mother
Mm-hmm.
Ma. Uh-huh. Yes. Okay. I understand. I understand. And he kept saying he understood. And he's like, "No, not yet. No, not yet." And then he was supposed to die that night.
Mm-hmm.
He lived for another few years.
Yeah, see, that's the interesting. As a nurse, I have looked after patients who have actually had no vital signs and been completely flat, as we say as a nurse, for a half hour, 45 minutes and resuscitated. And then I'm so grateful they shared their experience. And I always say with my career, I was so grateful to be there hundreds of times at the beginning of life. I used to work in the NICU. And then I went out into the community and I did a lot of things out there, a lot of really high tech stuff that you normally would do in a hospital. But the most rewarding work I did, I say I've been so deeply honored to have families ask me to be part of that journey, if you will, when their loved one transitions, as I call it, going back home.
Mm-hmm.
And palliative care, you learn so much. And exactly what you said your dad was doing, I actually call that the gift because, like you said, your dad he should have died that night, but you
Mm-hmm.
obviously knew he was talking to somebody on the other side. And this is what we find. I say we always have, there's physical signs with the human body that somebody's probably going to pass within the next 24 to 48 hours. And it doesn't always happen. but I've seen it in my experience about 80% of the time where the person might just wake up, be totally lucid in that time period. It could be for 5 minutes. Longest I think I've seen is about 8 hours. That one's a hard thing with families because they think a miracle has occurred. Meanwhile, the family member has been comatose for weeks. But it's almost the reason I call it the gift is because they're able to have those conversations as who they were before they got ill, or maybe tie up loose ends, or say their goodbyes, or let them know how much they love them, or what have you. So it's a beautiful thing. And the reason I ask you about the hellish experience, you don't see it very often. I have a theory on it, and I think what happens is, when somebody's having a near death experience and their vital signs crash, we talked about alternative dimensions, and there are lower dimensions
Mm-hmm.
than what we go. I know you know that, I meant for our listeners. So I think what happens, and I've talked with quite a few people about this, is their vital signs aren't completely absent. They're not completely deceased, if you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of get stuck in a lower dimension rather than ascending very quickly if the vital signs are absent right up to right where you're supposed to go when you take your last breath. I don't know, it's just a theory, but
I mean, I think that if you believe in the laws of attraction or the
hmm
secret,
hmm
self manifestation, self actualization, then you have to realize that all these things that you do on earth reverberate.
hmm
And so I'm not saying they were bad people and they
hmm
deserve to go to hell or have a bad experience, but what if they were and didn't do some great things or had a lot of guilt because they never rectified those wrongs that they perceived they did, and they were scared or they were in a place where they had to face that and
it
without
could
the
be.
possibility
Well,
of
I'm going to
rectifying.
send this to you after the show. There was one story that really got me, and it's of a guy that was in the military, and he was pretty low down on the totem pole, and he had a few little higher up people above him, and they had gotten leave over the weekend. And these guys all spent their money in alcohol or whatever. They were all young guys having a good time in there. So they had to stay back at the base. And one of the guys, I guess, had a camera and was going around snapping pictures. And as this guy tells the story, they end up in this place he didn't know was in the barracks. And there was a noose hanging down. And one of the guys said, "Wouldn't that be great with my last picture if we took a picture acting like somebody was kind of hanged?" And him being the young guy, the naive guy, they got him to do it. Now, he didn't know they had all made an agreement that someone was going to pull the noose. And that's what they did. And so he said he was just breathing in as they did it. Next thing he knew, he said he's sitting on the bunks with them, and they're all talking. He remembers that one of them was bugging the other guy for a stash of Snickers and kept saying, "Can I have a Snickers yet? Can I have a Snickers yet? Can I have a Snickers yet?" And he's going on and on and on talking. He didn't really say a lot. He said he was just listening to the conversation because he didn't know he had passed away until somebody said, "Hey, so and so, I don't think he's joking." And he looked over. He said he saw his body. He was completely blue, noose around his neck. And then he said, next thing he knew, he was in a complete black hole. And he talked about the hell experience. He talked about how he was rescued. Now, again, he didn't share his whole life story. He became extremely religious after this experience. But it was certainly a fascinating story. And I've heard it from other people with studying this for about 40 years. It doesn't happen very often. But again, are we ever going to know the answers, right, April? I always say until we all transition back home ourselves, that's when everything will probably become crystal clear, right?
I mean, I'm not afraid of death. I don't want to die right now. I mean,
Neither do
I feel
I.
like I have a lot to offer
hmm
and live
hmm
still.
hmm
But you're gonna laugh at me. I want to know who killed JFK.
That's coming out. That's coming
I
out.
want to know who killed Marilyn Monroe because I don't buy she died
Oh,
suicide.
I no, not at all.
Like
Not
I want
at
to know all these
all.
like stupid pop culture, like who done it. And when I die, I'll get to know all that stuff, and then I won't
No,
care
but you're
because I'll be
gonna know
dead.
now. Well, Julian Assange apparently released the wiki file or all of his WikiLeaks. So I think there is something in there in JFK. I'll have to send it to you after. You can take a look. But I wasn't looking for it, but I saw the postmortem pictures of Marilyn Monroe and I said, nope, she didn't die the way they
Oh
said.
no. No, she did not.
Mhm.
And I haven't I've had who did I have that was famous that came to me once? Honestly, it's terrible, right? I should know this.
It's
I grew up
okay.
in California, so I don't really like
Hmm.
actors and stuff to me are
Hmm.
like I've met many. I'm not impressed. They're just people. I don't see
They
them
are.
as like,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
They're just people.
but who came to me? It was a pretty big actor that
Hmm.
was been deceased for a while. I can't even remember. It was a male.
Hmm.
We had a conversation.
Hmm.
Um, but they're just people.
Hmm.
That's all they are, you know. And
Uh,
go ahead.
all I was going to say is I have an acquaintance that I know that runs a website channeling Eric. She has 5 kids, and her middle son had severe Tourette's and really severe bipolar, and he committed suicide at the age of 21. And she was an atheist. She's a doctor. Never believed anything. Her parents didn't believe in anything. But after Eric died, all these things started happening to the family that they'd never seen before. Her father, who was also a physician over in Europe and very staunch man, only believed in science, called her and said, I think I'm going crazy. And she said, why? And he said, because I just had Eric appear to me what he looked like when he was 4. And he sat on my lap, kissed me on the cheek, and said, I love you, Papa. And they were having all kinds of things like this. Long story short, she now knows that life exists beyond the grave. But what she does through various mediums is she interviews famous people through the medium and asks questions, and she gets Eric to bring along the person. Now, whether you believe it or not, I'm not doing a great job of telling it, but when you check it out, it's pretty interesting.
Well, this is what I say to people who are religious,
Hmm.
because it doesn't really matter what background you come from. If you believe in God, Allah,
Hmm.
Yahweh, whatever you want to call that entity or that
Hmm.
creator, you're going to have a very uh, pre-perceived vision of life, right?
Hmm.
Um, it baffles me
Hmm.
that because heard you say about 3 times during this talk that like, oh, there'll be people who like look at that and say, oh, it's just your flash, or it's or they're not going to believe us. And it's not like I'm just trying to be a jerk and say I don't really care, but I mean I don't really care because you cannot change a person's core belief system, and it's not up to me to change that.
Absolutely
I'm not
right.
here to like. You should question everything. You should question
Hmm.
me, check me out.
Hmm.
Check me out online. I'm
And I
nothing
have
exciting.
respect for people that do that because, I really do have respect for people that say, don't believe what I have to say. All I hope that this something resonates with you that you'll take a look and you'll check it out for yourself.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So my point in saying this is this: if you're a religious person and you have a doctrine that you believe in, okay,
Hmm.
that's amazing because that means that you believe in a higher power and that you subscribe
Yeah.
to a positive influence in this universe. And God knows we need this,
Yeah.
okay? That's great. But you believe in an entity that you've never had lunch with, that
Yeah.
you've not appeared before you
Yeah.
and said, hey, I'm going to part the Red Sea for you. I mean,
Yeah.
you believe in something that is written in a book that's been manipulated and rewritten hundreds of,
Agreed.
if not
Agreed. a
thousands of
hundred
times,
percent. Hmm.
in the last 2 millennia. And it was a religion started by man to control man. And I'm not speaking out of turn and I'm not speaking against anything because I respect anybody's belief system.
Don't feel bad because I feel like you've been visiting in my head because I've used those words word for word myself. Sorry, carry on.
What I'm saying though is that when we were hunters and gatherers and
Hmm.
running around the earth and shooting arrows at beasts and killing them and living off the land, there was no religion.
Hmm.
If there was, it was pretty much pagans, which believed in like the earth, the Gaia, the
Hmm.
respecting the planet,
Yeah.
indigenous belief systems, right? And religion came about, and then everything in history shifted from being like happy with what you had to
Hmm.
wanting everything you didn't have. And
Hmm.
instead of living your life to prepare for death with respect and reverence like the Egyptians did,
Hmm.
it turned into screw that, let's live today and get as much stuff as we can and have slaves, and I'm talking thousands of years ago, okay, and do
Hmm.
whatever we want and go conquer people, Lance, and harness this powerful thing called religion. Because if you can get into somebody's mind and you can make them believe something like that, then you can control them. And that's when I say religion has been weaponized. Basic religion tenets, I have no problem with. Love thy neighbor. Don't murder people. All these wonderful things that it teaches you.
Don't steal.
And God, according to the Bible, and trust me, everyone who's listening in the South especially, my grandparents are from Oklahoma and Arkansas. I grew up in a very Southern Baptist church. I have studied that Bible from the time I could read until the time I just walked away from it. And I will tell you that God says we're not supposed to judge. That's his job.
That's I say all the time.
And
not my job to judge.
And who are we doing? What are we doing? We judge each other all the time. All the time. It's judgment. All the time.
Just got a different label. I wanted to remind you, because we just got a few minutes left. You wanted me to bring up about little people, you said.
Oh,
yes.
Yes. Where was I going with that?
I was talking.
Oh,
good.
I know where I was going. Okay. So I have to think sometimes. My head goes 1,000 miles a minute. So little people. Now, giants too, right?
Existed.
Of course, all these creatures that you had brought up existed at one point. We have physical evidence. We have little people. We have what's it called? Gigantism? What's that gene?
Gigantism?
Where it makes you grow. These genes didn't come from nowhere. They have to come from somewhere. They're not just like random where like, oh, we have, little people and we have people that are like 7 feet tall, 8 feet tall. All of these things that people want proof of. I mean, if you really want proof, go knock on the Vatican door and ask them for the secret vaults, or go to the Smithsonian to their warehouse and go check that out, because they have giant bones. They have evidence of fairies. They have evidence of gnomes, which, by the way, I saw your gnomes back there. I am a gnome freak. Love gnomes.
Christmas. See, yes, we have so much in common. Yes, they're falling off.
I love gnomes.
I have to show this guy. This guy I made right from scratch. He's not a doll. This is my partner Dell's co-host. He calls him you. So when he says hey you, so he kind of looks like from ZZ Top, but he actually is a gnome without all the glasses.
Super hip gnome. I like him a lot. Isn't he cool? He's a 21st century gnome.
Yeah, he's a rocker dude gnome.
But I mean, like, it amazes me that people are so willing to put their faith and their belief system into an entity or deity that they've never seen, talked to, or touched, or whatever. Yet, if you believe in ET, Bigfoot, fairies, or whatever, you're crazy.
You're crazy, yeah.
It's all energy, people. This is all energy. We're talking about different forms and different belief systems. That's what we're talking about. And if you really want to look into Christian belief systems and where Christmas and Easter and all those holidays come from.
Pagan belief systems.
Yes, they're all from pagans, and there's a reason why. So that's what I want. That's my soapbox for that.
Well, that's a good place to end up. But will you please come back on again? I had so much fun with you tonight, talking to you about all these topics. I can't wait. Then you'll have a date for your podcast. You can tell people where to find you, where to tune in. So if you want to let people know, where can they find you, where the podcast is going to be broadcast again, and when it's relatively starting, and so on and so forth.
Right. And if they want to contact me, if they have any ideas of a podcast, or if they're, if they're a psychic, medium, or they have a personal experience with a Bigfoot, anything like, and it could be anything, honestly. The Ancient Gift 222 at Gmail is my contact.
And have that on there. Good. And the network again, because I've been trying to nail Chris down. Now I got you as a contact. I'll be able to nail him, because we've been trying to have each other on each other's podcast now for I don't know how long.
He mentioned it to me tonight. He's like, I was supposed to do it, but he came to Texas to help me move, and we just got into this place like 3 weeks ago, literally. So we're still unpacking. So it's just been a little crazy for us. But
it wasn't recent. We've been trying to do this for a while. Then he gets busy, then I get busy. And so I'm so glad you were able to come on. So where's the name of the podcast again, and where they're going to find you?
It's The Ancient Gift, and it's going to be on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network, and that's on Rockfin.
And it's also a great podcasting network. Chris runs it, right? And he's got quite a few good
Yeah, they have
different
Day
shows on there.
Zero. I'm pardon me, I don't know Karen Holtz. What's the name of her show?
Oh, geez, I know it, I know it, I know it, and I'm
I know
forgetting.
I should
I'm
know this.
forgetting. I'm forgetting.
Forbidden Knowledge News, obviously that's
Mhm,
what started it all. They have Day Zero. They have Knowing Understanding Propaganda and a
mhm,
couple other shows. So they have
mhm,
a great variety of,
mhm.
spiritual to conspiracy
Yeah,
to, all kinds of
everything in
stuff.
between, and that's kind of how we are on United Public Radio Network here. I want to thank April. Thank you so much for being here, and I
Thank you
mean
for
that. I
having me.
know we're going to be friends here. We're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff because there's been a couple times you've been talking. I'm thinking, oh my god, I think that girl's reading my mind.
You never know.
You never know. If you guys want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/the Angel Rock. Like I said, I have two groups on Facebook. Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and then I have the Angel Rocker Tribe, more for the power of the mind, power of positivity, law of attraction, a lot of the more esoteric and spirituality type things. And next Monday, I will be back. We've already talked about her. My really good close friend, Karen Holton, will be back. And we're going to be talking about an interesting topic next week. We are going to talk about what we're receiving from spirit, about collectively what is going on in the world, and talking about that we really believe that part of this is learning that we need to stand up and save ourselves rather than waiting or believing in that there's all kinds of somebody coming to save us. Now, again,
That's
what was that, April?
that's the divinity that we all
Mm-hmm.
have inside of
Mm-hmm.
us, that
Mm-hmm.
spark. And
Yeah.
we all have to own that and take
Mm-hmm.
responsibility for it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So it's not going to be a confrontational show. It never is. Karen's been on the show before, but I want to give you guys a heads up. Maybe you've got some thoughts on that too. We'd love to have you here, same time, same place. I want to thank you again for being here, April. I want to thank everybody else in the chat. I send you all so much love and light. We'll see you next Monday.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.